It was a crisp Tuesday morning, and I was deeply engrossed in reviewing the quarterly reports for my company, a sprawling hospitality empire that had become my life's work. Papers were spread across my desk, numbers dancing in my head, when my assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Sterling, you have a call from Elegant Events, the wedding planning company." My first instinct was to decline. I was swamped with work, and interruptions were the last thing I needed. But then, a flicker of memory stopped me. My younger brother, Marcus, was getting married next month. 6 months earlier, I'd quietly paid a $50,000 deposit to ensure he and his fiancée, Jennifer, could have the wedding of their dreams. They'd been struggling financially, and I wanted to help, no questions asked. The family never knew the money came from me. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and picked up the phone. David Sterling speaking. The voice on the other end belonged to Amanda, a coordinator from Elegant Events. Her tone was tense, almost hesitant, as if she dreaded what she had to say. "Mr. Sterling, I'm calling about the Henderson Miller wedding next month." I could sense something was wrong, her words laced with discomfort. "I have some unfortunate news regarding your invitation." I set down my pen, my focus sharpening. "Go ahead," I said, my voice calm but curious. Amanda hesitated before continuing. "Your family contacted us yesterday. They've requested that we remove you from the guest list entirely. They mentioned a family disagreement and specifically asked that you not attend the ceremony or the reception." The words landed like a punch to the gut, sharp and unexpected. My own family uninviting me from my brother's wedding? I kept my composure, my voice steady as stone. "I see." But Amanda wasn't finished. She rushed on, her voice tinged with unease. "They also asked if they could keep the $50,000 deposit you paid for the event. Mrs. Henderson said the family has already spent it on other wedding expenses." For a moment, I was speechless, the weight of their audacity settling over me like a storm cloud. Outside my office window, the city skyline stretched endlessly, a testament to my success. Half of it was mine, controlled through my investment companies, yet my family had no idea. To them, I was still the disappointing son who never amounted to anything. A hospitality empire worth $3.8 billion, and they thought I was scraping by. I leaned back in my chair, the silence on the line growing heavier. "Mr. Sterling, are you there?" Amanda's voice pulled me back. "Yes," I replied, my tone calm but resolute. "I'd like you to cancel the entire wedding." Amanda's confusion was palpable. "I'm sorry, what?" I repeated myself, slow and deliberate. "Cancel the Henderson Miller wedding. All of it. The venue, the catering, the flowers, everything." Her voice rose in panic. "Sir, I don't understand. You're not the groom. You can't just—" I cut her off gently but firmly. "Amanda, what's the name of your company?" She stammered, "Elegant Events Wedding Planning." I pressed further. "And who owns Elegant Events?" Papers rustled in the background as she checked. Sterling Event Holdings." I nodded to myself. "And who owns Sterling Event Holdings?" A longer pause followed, the realization dawning on her. "Sterling Hospitality Group." "That's right," I said, my voice steady as steel. "And I'm David Sterling, CEO and sole owner of Sterling Hospitality Group. So yes, I can cancel this wedding." I didn't stop there. To be more specific, cancel their reservation at the Grand Harbor Hotel. That's one of mine. Symphonic Catering? Also mine. The flower arrangements from Premier Botanical? Mine. The photography package from Lens and Light Studios? Mine as well. Amanda's voice trembled. "Mr. Sterling, I had no idea you were," I continued, unfazed. "The bachelor party reservation at Harborview Resort? Mine. The rehearsal dinner at Coastal Elite Restaurant? Mine. Even the limousine service they booked through Prestige Transportation? You guessed it, mine." Amanda's breathing was audible, heavy with shock. "But sir, the wedding is in 3 weeks. There are 200 guests, deposits paid." I didn't waver. "Cancel everything. Refund any deposits paid by guests for accommodations. Send the Henderson and Miller families a bill for the full amount they owe, minus my original $50,000 deposit, which I'm keeping as a cancellation fee." Amanda's voice cracked. "Mr. Sterling, this will destroy the wedding. There's no way they can find alternative vendors this close to the date. I leaned forward, my gaze fixed on the skyline. That's not my problem anymore. After hanging up, I sat back, the weight of the moment settling over me. At 28 years old, my family still saw me as the college dropout who threw his life away when I left Harvard Business School to start my first company. They had no clue that the small event planning business I'd mentioned casually over the years had grown into one of the largest hospitality empires on the East Coast. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "David, we need to talk about your recent behavior. Your attitude toward Marcus and Jennifer has been unacceptable. We think it's best if you don't attend the wedding. We'll be keeping the money you contributed since we've already spent it." I read the message twice, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. They had no idea what they'd just set in motion. I typed back, "Understood. Enjoy the celebration." What my family didn't know is that I'd been building my empire for 8 long years, starting the day I walked away from Harvard. Not because I was failing, but because I saw an opportunity in the luxury event market that no one else did. While they thought I was throwing away a guaranteed corporate job, I was betting everything on my vision. Sterling Events, my first company, began in a cramped studio apartment. I planned corporate gatherings and small weddings, working 18-hour days, sleeping on my office couch, fueled by ambition and coffee. My family's response? "David's going through a phase. He'll be back to real work soon." They couldn't have been more wrong. Within 2 years, I'd bought my first property, a struggling event venue that I turned into a profitable gem. My family still thought I was playing entrepreneur while they fawned over Marcus, the golden child following the traditional path through law school. By year 4, I owned 6 venues across 3 states. Sterling Hospitality Group was born, and I began acquiring complementary businesses, catering companies, florists, photographers, transportation services, every piece of the luxury event industry. My family remained blissfully oblivious. At holiday gatherings, they'd ask about my little business, with polite disinterest, quickly pivoting to Marcus' promising career at his law firm. When I bought my first hotel, a boutique property downtown, I mentioned it casually as expanding into accommodations. They nodded, smiled, and changed the subject. The real growth came in years 6 and 7, during an economic downturn. I acquired struggling hospitality companies, transforming them into thriving enterprises. Harborview Resort, Grand Harbor Hotel, the entire coastal elite restaurant chain, all household names my family had heard of, never suspecting their disappointing son owned them all. 30 minutes after my call with Amanda, my phone rang again. It was my father, his voice tense and confused. "David, I just got a call from some woman saying our wedding venue was canceled. There must be some mistake." I leaned back in my chair. "No mistake, Dad." His tone sharpened. "What do you mean, no mistake? This is ridiculous. We have a contract." I kept my voice even. "A contract with Sterling Event Holdings, which is owned by Sterling Hospitality Group, which is owned by me." The line went silent, the weight of my words sinking in. "David, what are you talking about?" he finally asked. "I'm talking about the fact that you canceled my invitation to my own brother's wedding while asking to keep the $50,000 I paid for it. So, I canceled everything else." His confusion turned to disbelief. "You paid for the wedding?" I nodded, though he couldn't see me. The venue, the catering, the hotel blocks, the flowers, the photography, the rehearsal dinner, the bachelor party, the transportation, all of it goes through companies I own. "Congratulations, Dad. You just uninvited the person who was paying for your son's entire wedding." Another long silence followed. "David, I think there's been a misunderstanding," he stammered. "No misunderstanding," I replied. "You made it clear I'm not welcome at family events. So, my companies aren't welcome to provide services for family events either." He tried to protest. "Companies? David, what companies? You plan parties." I almost laughed. After 8 years, he still thought I was planning birthday parties. "Dad, I own Sterling Hospitality Group. We control 47 venues, 23 restaurants, 12 hotels, 6 catering companies, and 11 event service providers across 7 states. We generated $1.2 billion in revenue last year." His disbelief was palpable. "That's That's impossible. I shrugged. Check our corporate website. Check the business registry. Check Forbes' list of fastest growing private companies. We were number 17 last year. I heard muffled voices in the background. My mother had joined the call. Her voice was shaky, uncertain. David, we had no idea you were successful. You never told us. I sighed, the frustration bubbling up. I tried to tell you. Every family gathering for 8 years, I tried to share what I was building. Remember when I mentioned buying the Harbor View Resort? You said it was nice that I was staying busy. When I told you about expanding into hotels, you asked when I was going to get a real job. My father cleared his throat. David, surely we can work something out. Marcus's wedding is... I cut him off. Marcus's wedding is no longer my concern. You uninvited me, remember? You made it clear my presence would somehow diminish your perfect family celebration. My mother's voice broke in. We didn't know. I shook my head. You didn't know because you never bothered to listen. You saw a Harvard dropout and decided I was a failure. You never looked deeper. My phone buzzed with another call, Amanda again. Dad, I need to take this. I switched lines. Amanda, what's up? Her voice was frantic. Mr. Sterling, I've been getting calls all morning. Your brother, your parents, even the bride's family, they're all asking about rebooking. And sir, with 3 weeks' notice, it's impossible. Every quality venue in the region is booked solid. The catering companies are committed to other events. There just aren't alternatives available. I considered this. What about the Grandview Manor? She hesitated. That's one of your properties too, sir. And it's already booked for that weekend. I nodded. Well, then they'll need to figure something else out. Amanda's voice softened. Mr. Sterling, your mother called crying. She said there are 200 guests, family flying in from across the country. She's begging for any solution. I paused, weighing my options. Any solution? I asked. Yes, sir, she replied. I leaned forward. All right, here's what we'll do. They can have the wedding at the Grandview Manor, my smallest venue. Reception capacity for 80 people maximum. Basic catering package. House flowers. Staff photographer only. Total cost, $200,000, paid in advance. Amanda gasped. Sir, that's 4 times what they were paying before and half the space. I didn't flinch. That's the offer. They wanted to exclude me from their celebration while keeping my money. Now they can include me in their decision-making while paying market rates. If they refuse, they can get married at City Hall. I hung up, returning to my work, but the weight of the day lingered. 3 hours later, Marcus called directly. David, what the hell is going on? His voice was a mix of anger and desperation. You're getting married. Congratulations, I replied, my tone even. Don't play games with me, he snapped. Mom's been crying all day. Dad's had 6 phone calls with different vendors, and everyone keeps telling him you own their companies. What kind of sick joke is this? I leaned back. It's not a joke, Marcus. It's business. Your wedding that I was financing. Your wedding that I was uninvited from. Your wedding that the family decided I wasn't worthy to attend. He went quiet, then spoke softly. We thought it would be better. I raised an eyebrow. You thought it would be better to exclude your brother from the most important day of your life while secretly keeping the money he contributed? Does that sound like family behavior to you? Marcus was silent for a moment, the weight of his actions sinking in. We didn't know the money came from you, he said finally. Mom asked me for help 6 months ago, I explained. She said you were struggling with wedding costs and Jennifer's family couldn't contribute much. I wrote a check for $50,000 that same day. Marcus's voice cracked. David, I didn't know. I shook my head. You didn't know because you never asked. Just like you never asked about my business, my life, or anything else. You assumed I was the family screw-up and moved on. He tried to protest. That's not true. I pressed him. Marcus, when was the last time you asked me a genuine question about my life? When was the last time any of you showed actual interest in what I do? The line went quiet. I continued, my tone firm but fair. I'll make you a deal. You can have your wedding at one of my venues, but I want three things: a formal apology from the entire family, an acknowledgement that you misjudged me, and my invitation restored, not as a courtesy, but because you actually want me there. Marcus hesitated. David, of course we want you there. I wasn't convinced. Do you? Or do you want my money there? He sighed heavily. What happens if we don't agree to your terms? I didn't hesitate. Then you figure out how to have a wedding with 3 weeks' notice and no connections in the industry. Good luck with that. I softened slightly. But if you do agree, you get married at a beautiful venue with excellent service, and your brother stands beside you as family should. Marcus's voice was quiet. I need to talk to Jennifer and our parents. That evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was Jennifer, Marcus's fiancée. David, it's Jennifer. I think we need to talk. I smiled faintly. Congratulations on your engagement. She chuckled nervously. Thank you. Listen, I had no idea about any of this. Marcus never told me you were helping with costs, and I certainly didn't know about your businesses. I shrugged. Most people don't. She continued, her voice earnest. I've been doing research all afternoon. Sterling Hospitality Group is huge. You own half the venues I dreamed of having my wedding at when I was growing up. I nodded. It's been a good few years. Jennifer's tone softened. David, I owe you an apology. We all do. I was there when your parents decided not to invite you. I should have spoken up. I leaned forward, curious. Why didn't you, honestly? She sighed. Because Marcus painted you as the irresponsible brother who never got his act together. I believed him. And now I realize Marcus doesn't actually know you at all. None of them do. Her voice trembled with emotion. David, I would be honored to have you at our wedding. Not because of your businesses or your money, but because you're Marcus's brother and you clearly care about family more than the rest of them realized. I considered her words. What does Marcus say? She paused. Marcus is processing. He's realizing his big brother isn't who he thought he was. It's a lot to take in. I nodded. And your parents? Jennifer's voice grew somber. They're scared. They've spent years treating you like the family disappointment, and now they're learning you're probably the most successful person in the room at any gathering. I smiled faintly. Success isn't just about money. She agreed. No, but respect should be about recognizing when someone deserves it. And clearly, you've deserved it for a long time. The next day, Amanda called with an update. Mr. Sterling, your family has accepted your terms. They've paid the deposit for the Grandview Manor package, and they formally requested that your invitation be restored. I raised an eyebrow. Did they agree to all the conditions? Amanda confirmed, yes, sir. Your father specifically asked me to tell you that the family would like to meet with you before the wedding to offer a formal apology. And your brother wants to know if you'd consider being his best man. I sat back, gazing out at the city skyline, the empire I'd built while my family saw only failure. 8 years of proving myself while they waited for me to grow up. 8 years of trying to share my success while they heard only excuses. Amanda, I said finally, tell them we'll have the meeting. Schedule it for this Saturday at the Harbor View Resort, my private dining room. And Amanda, make sure the catering is perfect. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. I arrived early, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. The resort was my biggest acquisition, a failing property I'd transformed into the region's premier destination. The private dining room alone was worth more than most people's homes. My family arrived together, Mom, Dad, Marcus, and Jennifer. They looked around the room in awe, taking in the crystal chandeliers, hand-carved furniture, and a view that stretched for miles across the water. David, my father said, extending his hand formally, thank you for meeting with us. I gestured to the table. Have a seat. Servers brought in lunch prepared by the same kitchen that catered to governors and celebrities. My mother's voice was quiet. This place is incredible. I had no idea. I nodded. I mentioned buying a resort property 3 years ago. You said I was expanding my business. My father cleared his throat. David, we owe you an apology. A major one. I met his gaze. Go ahead. He took a deep breath. We misjudged you badly. For years, We saw what we expected to see instead of what was actually happening. Marcus leaned forward, his voice heavy with regret. David, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for dismissing your achievements, for assuming you were irresponsible, and for letting the family uninvite you from my wedding. I tilted my head. Why did you assume I was irresponsible? He sighed. Because you dropped out of Harvard. Because you never had a traditional job. Because you never bragged about your success. I raised an eyebrow. Would bragging have helped? He shook his head. No. But maybe if you'd been more direct about what you were building. I smiled slightly. Marcus, I told you 3 years ago that I'd acquired a hotel chain. You said, that's nice, and changed the subject to your latest case at the law firm. He had no answer. Jennifer spoke up, her voice earnest. David, we'd like to start over. All of us. We want to know about your life, your business, your plans. We want to be a real family. I leaned forward. And if I hadn't turned out to be wealthy, what then? My father answered honestly, his voice heavy. Then we probably would have continued misjudging you. That's what makes this so shameful. My mother's eyes glistened with tears. David, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you've built. But more than that, I'm proud that you still wanted to help with the wedding even after how we treated you. I met her gaze. You're my family. That matters to me, even when it doesn't seem to matter to you. Marcus stood and walked around the table. David, I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like to ask again. Would you be my best man? I looked at my younger brother, the golden child who'd followed every family expectation, who'd never taken a risk or built something from nothing. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. He was finally seeing me clearly. Marcus, I said, my voice steady, I'd be honored. 3 weeks later, the wedding took place at the Grandview Manor. Though it was my smallest venue, it was nothing short of spectacular, with gardens featured in architectural magazines and a breathtaking view of the coastline. The family that had once dismissed my party planning business watched in amazement as my staff executed a flawless celebration. During my best man speech, I looked out at the 200 guests, many of whom had spent the evening whispering about my business empire. When Marcus and I were kids, I began, my voice steady and clear. He always looked up to me. Somewhere along the way, that changed. He started seeing me as the brother who took the wrong path, who gave up on conventional success. I paused, making eye contact with my family. What Marcus didn't realize is that I never gave up on success. I just defined it differently. Success isn't about meeting other people's expectations. It's about building something meaningful and sharing it with the people you love. I raised my glass to Marcus and Jennifer. May you build something beautiful together, and may you always remember that the best achievements are the ones you share with family. Later, as the evening wound down, my father approached me on the terrace. David, I have a question. I nodded. Sure. He hesitated. Why didn't you just tell us? Why let us think you were struggling all these years? I considered this carefully. Dad, I tried to tell you. But more than that, I wanted you to be proud of me for who I was, not what I owned. I wanted you to see that dropping out of Harvard was the right choice, that building something from scratch had value. He nodded slowly. And we failed that test. I smiled faintly. You did. But you passed the test that mattered more. He looked puzzled. Which test was that? I met his gaze. Tonight, when you had the chance to choose pride over family, you chose family. When you realized you were wrong, you admitted it. That's worth more than years of recognition. He placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you, son. Not just for your success, but for your character. You had every right to walk away from this family, and instead, you saved your brother's wedding. I nodded. Family is family, Dad, even when they don't act like it. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the 8 years I'd spent building my empire in plain sight of a family that couldn't see it. The Harvard dropout who became a billionaire. The party planner who created a hospitality dynasty. The family disappointment who turned out to be the family foundation. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Thank you for everything. I'm sorry it took me so long to see who you really are. I'm lucky to have you as a brother. I smiled and typed back, welcome to the family business. Because that's what it had always been about, not just building companies, but building something that could bring family together. It just took them a little longer to realize it. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The wedding had been featured on several social media accounts, with photos of the venue, the food, and the celebration spreading like wildfire. But more importantly, I had messages from my parents, Marcus, and Jennifer, all asking when we could have dinner again, a real dinner, a family dinner. As I sat in my office Monday morning, looking out at the city skyline I'd helped shape, I realized something profound. Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about being strong enough to keep loving them even when they're wrong. And sometimes, if you're patient enough, they figure it out on their own. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.